Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Checkerboard chat. We are so thankful to have you here with us today. We are going to get started in just a few moments with our Checkerboard chat about securing your retirement. Before we get started, I would like to go ahead and let you know that you can ask questions throughout the duration of the presentation today by putting anything into the comments section on either Facebook or YouTube. Myself and our colleagues with the alumni office will be online to make sure that we get those questions to our panelists. Which it is now time for me to bring all three of them onto the screen here. I'm going to bring all three on at one time to let you all go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for being here. These are our three panelists today that are joining us from Morgan Stanley, and we are so thankful to have you all join us. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Ivy, to let you all get started.
Great. Tell you what, if you start something out with Rocky Top, it just makes you want to just high five everyone in the room. So it's a pleasure to be here. Again, my name is Ivy Burns, and on behalf of the Triad Group at Morgan Stanley, welcome to this call today titled Helping Secure Your Retirement Income. Now, my wife and I, we're UTK alum, and we met on the UTK campus in the Presidential Courtyard in 1988. We have a son who's currently a junior at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and he's in the three-year undergrad, three-year law school program. I currently serve on the UT Knoxville Alumni Board. We have an exciting meeting this weekend in Knoxville, matter of fact. So as you might imagine, my love for the Vols runs deep. I've been a financial advisor for 29 years. As a Morgan Stanley financial advisor, we have developed a team of four financial advisors who have different specialties. Today, I have my teammates joining me, Mark Jacobs and Vivan Putharansi, here on this presentation. This presentation will take approximately 30 to 45 minutes, including a final Q&A period at the end. For those who are joining the UT Checkerboard chat for the first time, we would like to extend a special welcome to you. As a value-added service to those whom our team is fortunate enough to serve, we conduct these type of educational and informative video conference calls in order to provide guidance as a value-added service regarding financial planning and retirement income needs. Of course, you can always reach out to us by searching your internet browser, the Triad Group at Morgan Stanley. Just as a little note here, the call is designed by the advisors of the Triad Group at Morgan Stanley. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mark Jacobs for further comments.
Thank you, Ivy, and good morning or good afternoon, whichever time zone this presentation may find you in here. So my name is Mark Jacobs, as Ivy stated, and I'm a financial advisor with the Triad Group at Morgan Stanley. Today, we're going to talk about retirement income planning, a concern that becomes increasingly important for all of us as we near retirement. For some of us, retirement may be an age, and for others, we may share in the words of George Foreman, the famous boxer, who was quoted as saying, "The question isn't at what age I want to retire, it's at what income." So as we transition, or as we're already on our slide here, retirement and income planning is an empty canvas which we can choose to paint. So as you paint that retirement masterpiece, here are some questions to get you thinking about the next chapter in your life. So what does retirement mean to you? Let's personalize it. Picture collecting that last paycheck. How old will you be? What will you spend it on? How will you celebrate? Will you celebrate? Will you mark that milestone? What feelings do you possibly have about working in retirement? What about health? Do you feel healthy? And are there other reasons you wouldn't assume a normal life expectancy? What about your parents? Are they still living? Do you expect you'll need to help them out any or support them financially? Besides the University of Tennessee, are there other charities that you'd like to support in your golden years? How about remembrance? How would you like to be remembered? What would that financial legacy look like to those closest to you? Admittedly, this is a lot to think about. And if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, even just from the very beginning, talk to your financial planner. We can go over these types of questions systematically and help you develop your own personal view of what you really want your retirement to look like. Let's talk a little bit about longevity. with medical advances and increased emphasis on wellness, we're all living longer, healthier lives, which is great news. But increased life expectancy also means our retirement savings will need to last longer than it did for previous generations. Many people underestimate their life expectancy, their lifespan, and therefore risk outliving their assets. So when we talk about building upon your retirement income plan, allow for the possibility that we'll live longer than we may think. Many people spend as many years in retirement as they did planning for retirement during their careers. And of course, you can see the numbers, the statistics. As you look through this here, a 60-year-old male has a 61% chance of reaching age 85. A 60-year-old female, 71% chance of 85. And combined, the probability that at least one of them will reach age 85 is almost 9 out of 10. Let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit about income projections. So once we tally up your projected retirement expenses, we can then look at how to plan to meet them. In other words, how will you fund your retirement income plan? So this slide shows the primary income sources for most retirees. And if you take a look around the dial here, you'll see that roughly 2/3 of our income in retirement might come from Social Security and investment earnings. In addition, identifying when you'll get these payments is just as important as knowing where they'll come from. So you can see Social Security, statistically speaking, will most likely start between 62 and 70 for us. You may not have access to your retirement accounts until 59 and a half. There's a 10% premature withdrawal penalty from the IRS, and you may be required to take payments from those accounts at age 72, what are called required minimum distributions. So knowing these types of timeframes can help give you a picture of how you'll meet these expenses over time. One final thing I'd be remiss to add, there are 2 phases of retirement planning. The first phase is the accumulation phase. As you might imagine, it's the phase before retirement, as we're taking a portion of our salary, our paycheck, we're putting it back to a 401k, maybe an employer-sponsored plan, or even an IRA, an individual retirement account. And then finally, there's the distribution phase of retirement. And as you might imagine, it's when I'm already in retirement. I've made that choice to tip over from the accumulation to the distribution phase. And now I have this pot of cash. I have this nest egg that needs to last me for the rest of my life. And so just be mindful. There are 2 different types of strategies that you might want to consider during those phases of retirement. So with that said, let me go ahead and turn it over now to my teammate, Vivon, for our next comments.
I want to say one thing before we go to Vivon regarding Social Security. Great points, Mark. Most people do have the tendency to want to draw at age 62 because they think that's when it's available. I better get it while I can. Normally, we find it's more advantageous to people to reach their full retirement age. So we just want to highly encourage you, before you make that final decision, to reach out to an advisor, your advisor, just to say, hey, what's my optimization age? And you'll see with longevity, where people live statistically past this 75, 76 age, but deferring your retirement on Social Security, if you can, it's to your advantage. I'm sorry, Vivon, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. So once you've determined what retirement means to you, how much it'll cost, and whether you have sufficient income, you have to take a close look at the risks that might be standing between you and your retirement income goals. So some of these risks may be obvious, such as market risk, the rising cost of healthcare, but others may need more explanation. So let's take a look at this list. Longevity risk is the possibility that you'll outlive your assets. Market risk involves not just the possibility that the market will move against you, but that it'll move against you at the worst possible time. Immediately before or after you retire, and begin withdrawing assets to meet your expenses. Inflation risk, it's the risk that your assets will not grow as fast as the inflation rate and therefore lose their purchasing power. The asset allocation risk involves constructing your investment portfolio to pursue not only your retirement ambitions, but other goals that's important to you. Access withdrawal risk is exactly what it sounds like. The risk that you'll withdraw too much from your portfolio each year to meet expenses. Healthcare costs is a source of anxiety for a lot of people approaching retirement. Retiree medical costs, they're rising faster than general inflation, and the number of individuals covered by employer health plans in retirement is decreasing. And that makes planning for healthcare costs an important part of preparing for retirement. So let's talk about some of these considerations in more detail. Of course, there's always the issue of market risk. What if the market plunges the month you decide to retire? Clearly, no one knows what the market's going to do from one year to the next. Once you retire and begin to withdraw your savings, the timing of returns will have a significant effect on your portfolio. So timing is very important. The worst possible time to experience a bear market is right before and after retirement, because that's when your retirement money matters the most. As a result, you should think about adopting a more conservative approach to investing as you get closer to retirement. So as you can see on this chart, the less you pull from your account, the longer it lasts. If you withdraw 10%, your money will last 10 years. If you withdraw 8%, your money will last 13 years. So the gold standard is a 4% withdrawal rate. At the same time, withdrawal rates much above 5%, especially in early years of your retirement, may increase the likelihood that you deplete your assets permanently. So it's a good idea to use a conservative of a withdrawal rate as possible, particularly early on. So over the years, it never fails when someone finds out what I do. They want to know the latest, greatest investment or stock pick is. As a matter of fact, you may have even heard of some stocks that's available on the market recently during their initial public offering. Airbnb and DoorDash are some popular names you might be familiar with. But interestingly enough, if you look at the slide here, out of 10% average annual return, 91% will be determined by your asset allocation. So only 5% was determined by security selection, 2% market timing, and 2% other factors. So whether it's mutual funds, exchange-traded funds, or individual stocks, we'll partner with you to ensure your asset allocation mix is properly set up. So to close out my presentation, I wanted to talk about the bucket approach here. Here's some examples you'll want to prioritize. First, you'll want to have 3 to 6 months of emergency funds. Calculate your monthly expenses by 3 months or 6 months, whether it's whatever you're comfortable with. So keep that savings in a money market or a high yield savings account. Next, if your company has a health savings account, take advantage of the tax-deferred savings by adding at least what the company will match. You'll then want to add to your company's retirement savings plan, a 401k, 403b type of plan. You want to contribute at least what they match. The match is free money as a benefit to you by the company, and you'll want to take advantage of that. If your debt needs to be pay off the higher interest rate debt first, and then work your way to the lower interest rate debt. So after your high interest rate debt's paid off, you'll want to add more money to your company's retirement savings plan. We recommend maxing that out if you have additional monies to invest. The max contribution for 2021 is $19,500. The catch-up contribution if you're 50 years or older is an additional $6,500. Of course, if you add your your employer contribution, you may want to contribute to an IRA. We can discuss that with you individually to see if it makes sense for your unique situation. We'll be glad to help with that. And lastly, you'll want to focus on funding your taxable account. And Ivy Burns, do you want to go ahead and talk about the retirement strategy now, or any other comments y'all have for me?
Yes. Thank you, Vivon. What we're going into our third section right now, which is the developing a retirement income strategy. And again, as we've said earlier, this process may seem very daunting, and without help it can be. But I want you to know that we can work with you to address these issues. And I will assume that if you have a relationship with a trusted financial advisor, they can do the same as well. Now, regarding our goal planning system that we provide, it ties our clients' goals to implementation. It gives us the ability to leverage the intellectual capital and sophisticated institutional capabilities of Morgan Stanley. So we get into discovery, which is where we like to start a conversation with you. It's almost like we just sit around the table and we drink coffee and just visit. What are your needs? What's your lifestyle? What makes you tick financially? What keeps you up at night? And conversely, what provides you with the most important thing, peace of mind? We then provide you with a questionnaire to assist you with getting your thoughts in order. We process this data and then set a time to meet with you to thoroughly and methodically go over everything in your financial life. And then we advise, we work with you to develop portfolio strategies so that you can achieve your financial goals with the least amount of risk as possible. And I underline least with my hand because it's such an important thing. We believe do not take on more risk than you have to. And as Mark Jacobs, our partner, likes to say, if we do a good job with our plan and we listen to what the plan's telling us, it will give us the exact roadmap of what we need to do in order to manage your money. And then we get into the implementation stage, which being that Morgan Stanley is the largest investment firm in the United States, we have access to pretty much any investment that meets your financial goals. We look across your multiple accounts to determine which are the best investment processes and products to fit your strategy. And then probably even most importantly, the journey begins. We track your progress. Once the plan's in place, we have to monitor in progress to make sure that you're remaining on track toward those goals. Now let's talk a little bit about our probability of success target zone. To create a successful target zone, our system will literally run 1,000 Monte Carlo trials. Monte Carlo uses a different sequence of returns. These multiple trials provide a range of possible results, some successful, which is where you would have met all of your goals, and some successful where you have not completely met your goals. We identify the confidence zone as a probability of success between 75% and 90%. This range of success gives us confidence that you will reach your goals. Remember, this calculation is based on your plan goals, your specific time horizon, your risk profile, and other factors unique to you. Now, regarding the downside risk associated with asset allocation, many of our clients are not aware of the risks that they might be taking in their portfolio, meaning are they taking on more risk than necessary to meet their long-term financial goals? As I said earlier, we're able to analyze the portfolios that a client has currently and determine what type of downside market risk they could expect during adverse market conditions. As you see on this slide, this client currently could experience a $68,000 drawdown. However, if they will shift their portfolio based on their financial plan's recommended allocation, we can reduce their downside risk by over $13,000 and them still reach their goals. So it points out that proper asset allocation analysis and adjustments can make a big difference. And then on to our summary slide here, where we put it all together. So let's take a minute to review what we've talked about today. You have to identify and quantify your retirement goals so you have a realistic target to aim for. And that's a question that we as financial advisors and your financial advisor should be saying to you is, what are your goals? What are your dreams? You have to take inventory of all your potential sources of income from Social Security, possible pension income, to your 401k assets, as well as other savings. You have to compare your projections to determine whether there's a gap or surplus. If there's a gap, we will provide you with strategies to help fill that gap. Either way, we'll work with you to create an appropriate asset allocation for your investment portfolio and monitor your progress over time. And at this point, Mark will have a few closing comments, summary, and then we'll be open to questions in the end as well.
Great. Thank you all. So just as a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to submit those in our chat program as well, and that and Jordan and we'll be glad to get those to us. We'll be glad to answer those. While any of those may be queuing up, if you have any questions, I wanted to go back for just a moment, Ivy and Vivon, and just talk a little bit about the Social Security situation, because that can be for some their largest funding source during retirement. Matter of fact, I just had a call this morning with a gentleman who said, Mark, I read a headline today that Social Security was going to go until 2034, the trust fund, and then it was going to dramatically drop. He says, is that true? And I said, well, let's talk a little bit about the facts before we get much further. I said, you're right. I used to do Social Security presentations all the time. And at that time, the trust fund was scheduled to go out to 2037. And then it was revised down to 2036. And now the most recent projections are 2034. However, at that time, it's scheduled to go down to roughly 79% of the benefits. Not a drastic or a doomsday scenario as the headline this person referenced earlier, but still a haircut, certainly. My personal opinion is there will be some type of reform before that happens. But again, as the time comes and we get closer to that 2034 deadline, or even if it's revised lower, we'll know more at that time. And so, again, the main thing is that you're aware of the facts, the details, and you've customized a solution for your unique situation. So before I wrap up, are there any questions that we need to address, or comments, or anything like that?
I see one that just came through, Mark. Good question. What could someone not quite near retirement age do to best prepare? As I like to say, once we sort of get out from the house, start supporting ourselves, it's our job to feed ourselves from that day forward. And while we're working, our greatest asset is the ability to work and generate income. But there comes a point in time where it may not that we want to retire, but we're going to have to retire. So at that point, we've got to feed ourselves at that point in life as well. So as a general rule of thumb, I tell all my clients, you need to have that emergency fund, and that's when Murphy's Law sets in and that tire blows out when you least expect it, or the heating air unit has to be repaired and you never thought it would. So get that emergency fund set up, which is 6 months worth of living expenses. And if you drop that down below that number, then sort of tighten the belt up and get it back to that number. Once you get that established, that's your security blanket. And then most people now are in 403Bs or 401k plans. That is a company-sponsored retirement plan. You need to be saving 10% of what you make from your income toward that. And if you're young enough, you will be able to accumulate a large enough asset pool that will generate you income the rest of your life. So again, in summary, get that 6 months living expense savings account set up at the bank, savings account, your investment firm, money market, security blanket, and then start putting 10% into your retirement plan. Mark or Vivon, would you have anything to add to that?
That's brilliant. I mean, that's 29 years worth of great advice there, Ivy. In my 26 years of practicing, the only thing I would say to that, if I could pass one financial tidbit on to generation after generation after generation, is save as much as you can as early as you can. And if you're in your 40s or 50s and maybe retirement's, sooner than you may think, again, it's never too late. And I'll give the exact same advice that Ivy shared, is live within your means, obviously save more than you spend. And then there's a 3-step formula that I've kind of brainwashed my children with, is the give, save, spend principle, where I like to give 10% of my money up front. Again, your charity of cause, if you will. I like to save 10%, as Ivy mentioned earlier, and then you live on the rest. And so that's just a real simple formula: give, save, spend, as it relates to that topic. So, any other questions out there?
Looks like that's got us, doesn't it, Mark? Vivon?
Okay.
Well, we really appreciate this opportunity. Mark's going to close us out, but it's been wonderful to be a part of my Big Orange family here today. And we do have another question just came in. What is the optimal drawdown strategy for retirement funds to minimize taxes, taxable or non-taxable funds? I'll mention this. That's where having a skilled, as Mark referred to earlier, distribution specialist is very important. We spend a lot of time determining. This is almost like a special situation for every individual. Sometimes you can sell off securities or investments, and that's capital gains, and that's to your advantage. Sometimes you pull from your Roth or your non-IRA accounts because that's to your tax advantage. And then you pull from your IRA. We do have so that's a very personal type situation. But what you try to do in summary is to pull the least amount of funds possible to create a taxable situation. But we do have some people that, let's say they retired at 63, they don't have to pull money out to their 70 or 72 from their IRA. We're living off of monies that are not qualified, I mean, they're not IRA money. So that's really a pretty tax-free, it's not tax-free, but partially low tax type withdrawal. So what we'll do is we'll reach forward and either convert some of that IRA money or pull some out early at a lower tax bracket. But the whole goal in summary is to pull the least amount possible out to keep your tax bracket as low as you can. So again, you would be looking at capital gain type investments. You would look at high cost basis type investments. You would look at Roth type investments, and then you would go to your IRAs. And one thing that we do for a lot of our clients, since we're representing a University of Tennessee call, is when you get to be 72 years old, you might want to do all your giving to your university or religious organizations or charities from your IRA, so it wouldn't be taxable, and then you're living off your other funds. And again, our information will be out there on the website. So for some of these questions that just came in that were more specific, they could go to the Triad group at Morgan Stanley, come to us personally, and we can talk to them, or reach out to your own financial advisor as well. Anything to add on that, Vivon or Mark?
Yeah, I want to just say, just real quick, that's a great question, Kipling. The one thing I would add, I think the easy answer on that is to pull from non-taxable funds first. However, I would caution this: if you let those taxable or maybe those traditional IRA or 401k assets continue to grow tax deferred, if we're not careful to manage that at age 72, when we're forced to pull money from those retirement accounts from the IRS, if we're not careful, it could cause us to bracket creep into a higher tax bracket. So again, that's all part of managing that taxable solution from the age of, say, 59 and a half to 72. One may consider, and again, your situation is unique. This is not a blanket suggestion. One may consider what's called a Roth IRA conversion, where you can slowly take money from a taxable account, pay taxes on it, and put it in that Roth IRA account to where it does not become a taxable event down the road. So just, again, just word to the wise, just a little bit of caution there. So with that said, I'll go ahead and wrap up the session. I don't see that there are any other questions there. So thank you all for attending this afternoon's session. It was certainly a pleasure sharing some time with Big Orange Nation. As I mentioned earlier, if our team can be of any resource or answer any questions, feel free to reach out to Jordan or simply go to our website and contact us directly. Whether you've just embarked on your college experience as an incoming freshman, or maybe you're listening to us and you're thinking about retirement next year, or perhaps you've recently retired, it's always important to keep in mind retirement is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of an open highway. And as I've alluded earlier in my remarks, go paint your masterpiece. Dream big dreams, plan big plans. And let me leave you with the famous words of one of my favorite poets, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Dare to live the life you dreamed for yourself. Go forward, make your dreams come true. With that, Jordan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And so much expertise shared. And this will live on our Facebook and YouTube page. So you can refer to this, go back and watch it. You can share it with people that you think this may be of interest to. I do have a question. I didn't want to put it into the chat. I just figured I'd wait till the end. But my question would be, at what age is a good time to make that first sit down meeting with a financial advisor to kind of initiate these types of conversations? And I'll be honest, that it's something my parents have always talked about, but am I still too young to do that? Or what time is a good time to do that?
I can take that. I would say as soon as possible. I know one of my role with our team is to visit some of our 401k clients and participants. So if your company does have that, sit down and talk to that person, because that's a free service to you. You don't have to pay additional fees to the financial advisor. The company is paying for that service. So maybe that's a good time to start, I think, to go ahead and accept the free service. So I would say as soon as possible, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else?
Jordan, let me also say this. That's a great question. And listen, I have heard from folks in their 50s and 60s, and they're approaching retirement, and they've even voiced to me, Mark, I've been scared to death of this topic. It's threatening. It's overwhelming to me. It's too much. I have no clue where to start. And I would say find that relationship that's comfortable. Even maybe it's a cup of coffee. Maybe it's a video conference, maybe it's a telephone call, but it's a very non-threatening introduction, if you will, to this financial planning and investing world. And then find someone that you feel good about. Maybe you sit down with 2 or 3 or 4 different folks, and you'll have a comfort level. You'll have an intuition that says, I'm leaning towards Sally over here or Bill over there. And then find someone who can really take the heart of a teacher. At the core of our business, we're educators, and we feel the more educated people are about their financial options, the better choices they can make with their hard-earned and irreplaceable capital. So I hope those few tidbits help, Jordan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll throw this in here. Being blessed with 29 years experience in this business and being an alum of the University of Tennessee, to my Big Orange family, if you just ever want to just talk and just bend an ear, I'm here as an individual to reach out and just say, hey, let's just talk about it. We have a belief that, like Mark said earlier, consulting is what we like to do, and education is what we do. So, if we can be a resource, between our expertise. The University of Tennessee has they have an Empower plan through the state of Tennessee, and there's people there that we speak with. But collectively, it's a family. We're happy to help, and usually most advisors, Jordan, and to other people, there's no fee to just sit down and talk initially. It's almost like you're interviewing them to see if they're your best source of advice. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, am I going to pay a fee just to talk to someone? Usually it's set up in a way that's just an interview on your part, because as I say, we're being hired by you, not the other way around.
Sure. Yeah, all of that super helpful, and definitely appreciate the expertise from each of you. And thank you again for your time today. We really appreciate it. We hope that you all have a great rest of the week. And if you have any questions or anything that didn't get asked today, you can always reach out to me. I'd be happy to pass those questions along to our colleagues over here at Morgan Stanley. And again, thanks so much for your time today. We will see you all for the next Checkerboard Chat coming up here in just a few weeks. If you'd like to visit alumni.utk.edu/events, you can see all of our upcoming virtual and in-person events there on our website. So thanks so much, everybody. Hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you next time.